Hello everyone. Welcome to the sixth video in my series, Introduction to Digital Illustration with Adobe Illustrator. In this video, we will look at using type, effects, and blending modes. If you feel like following along, download the demo file in the link in the description box below. Alright, let's get started. So we're going to start off with looking at the text tool and how to create point text and area type. So first, we will start by placing some point type. With our type tool selected, we will place our text wherever we want it to start. So in this case, let's just put it in this box. So we just want to click once to place the text. So again, we just only want to click once. So we click once, and then some filler text will appear and be highlighted in black. We can immediately start typing to replace the text. So in this case, let's just type in hello. Now we want to scale it. So let's just go to our selection tool, and then a bounding box will appear. So remember, it's pretty important not to distort the type, as in squishing it or stretching it. This is a big typographic no-no, and it's somewhat like stretching someone's portrait. So we really want to avoid this. So we want to hold Shift whenever we are scaling text. So we're just going to scale it to around the size of the box, and then we can just move it back in. And then now we've just placed some point text. So now let's just look at changing and adding type. So to change and add type, we have to open the character panel. And we'll just pull this up. And then with this panel open, we can use it to adjust the text size. We can even use it to change the line spacing. So right in between here, we can make it smaller, or we can make it wider. We can also change the letter spacing, so we can make this really wide if we like. And this works better if it's all in all caps, like that. So it gives it a kind of regal sense. We don't generally want to do this with lowercase ever. And then we can also, if we notice that there's some strange gaps in the text, like maybe we think that there might be a little too much space in between this, maybe too much space in between here, we can change the kerning. So it's just a space between two letters. So if we really want to close it in, we can also do that if we like. It looks good though here because Myriad's a pretty good typeface. And then, all right, but some typefaces are quite not as well designed. So if your typeface has some uneven spacing in it, you can use a kerning to just adjust. So maybe we can go like this. This again looks really good, but yeah, you can add typefaces through here. If you like, you can even use the Adobe Cloud to add more typefaces. So you just click on Find More right here. And then you can filter through what kind of text you're looking for. So if you're looking for sans serifs, so without the little serifs, slab serifs, scripts, or black letter, or monospace fonts, you can just use those to filter. And then you can just go through and then to see if there's anything you like. So in this sense, let's just choose this Daiko Mono. And then to activate it, we just click on the cloud and download icon right here, and then we just hit activate, and then we hit OK. And then now, if we want to, it should be activated. So we just select it, and then we'll just go here, and then we can see we'll have to clear our filters, and then we can just see which ones we downloaded. So I'll just click on that one, and you can see we downloaded this Daiko Mono, so we can just click that one, and then we can have it, and then we've added a website, a typeface. If you want to add other typefaces, you'll have to add it using your system browser. In either case, you usually just double click on the type folder and then hit install. So if you want to edit individual shapes of the letters, you're going to have to create outlines to the text to do so. So first we have to select our type, and then we'll go to type, and then we'll go to create outlines right here. And then what this will do is I'll turn our letters into actual objects and shapes where we can see the anchor points and the paths that we can adjust. So for instance, if I want to make this N really long, maybe one of the stems go all the way down. I don't know why, but maybe it's something we want to do. And maybe the G, we can want to take it all the way up. We can do something like that. Or if you want to move, say, this side of the N and make this part really long, then you can also do stuff like that. This should give you some options to play around with it. Again, when you're playing around with letters, you probably want to be a little bit more judicious, but this gives you some options to do some interesting things with the type, and it's helpful, especially if you are doing something like a logo. So yeah, you can do some interesting things right there. But to do so, you'll have to go into type and you have to create outlines. You might also want to do this if you're sending your file to someone to edit, but they might not have the typefaces. So you might want to just expand the type if there's not a lot, just so that they won't have any errors when they open it up. So now let's create a area type box. So an area type box is really good for when you have larger amounts of text, and then this gives you a box to contain it that you can edit the shape, sort of something like this right here. So to create an area type box, it's like creating a point text, but instead of just clicking once, you click and drag the size of the box that you want it to be. So here again, you just click and drag. So we're just going to click where we want it to start and then drag out a box just like that. And then you'll see that just fills in with a bunch of filler text. So if you had some text copied, then you can just paste it right in, or if you want to, you can just start typing, like here's some text, just like that. But let's just go back to the lorem ipsum. That way we can see what we can do with the text box. So with the text box, if you sort of make it larger or smaller, the text box gets bigger, but the text and size stays the same. So this is great if you're playing around with an area with larger amounts of text. And then this way you can just adjust the text box to make sure it fits. Now let's take a look at the paragraph panel to just see what we can do in there to these large amount areas of text. So we'll just open up our paragraph panel and I'll drag that out, and then we'll zoom right in so you can take a look. So in the paragraph panel, one thing that I always like to do is I like to make sure that the hyphenation is turned off. Sometimes when the hyphenation is turned on, especially if you have text with a lot of long words, it might look a little bit funny with a lot of hyphens, which is sometimes not what you want. So I'll just show you right here. So you can kind of see with the filler text, there's a lot of hyphens on the side, and sometimes that doesn't look great. So for me, I like to just turn that off. But other things you can do in the paragraph panel is you can change how much space goes before or after a paragraph. Usually I just go with after. So here we can just give it some space between all the paragraphs. And you can also choose how much of an inset you want. Say it's in a, so you can change the inset right here, or you can even add a little bit of a tab there to the first paragraph. And then in that case, you don't need to have any space between the paragraphs, just like that. So that's something you can do with the panel, the paragraph panel, which is really good to just give a little bit more detail and some nuance to larger amounts of text. And combined with the character panel, with leading, with the line spacing, you can create some more, you can have a little bit more control over your the type in your document. So here you can see this is default, and this one has a little bit more consideration, which makes it just look a little bit more refined. So now let's look at some other fun tools underneath our type tool. So some fun things we can do are integrating types and paths. So the first thing I want to show you is type on a path. So type on a path just puts type along a path, which we'll quickly see. So on our text tool, our type tool right here, we just want to click and hold and then find the type on a path tool right there. But before that, I'm just going to select this text right here to put it on there, and then yes, and then now I'll go type on a path tool, and then I'll just choose the path I want to put it on, and in this case I want to put it around a circle. So I'll just click on this path, and then again you'll see that there's some filler text, but I'm going to put this Vector Coffee Company name in there as if I'm making a seal, and then you can kind of see that goes along the path now. So of course this is not quite exactly what I want. I'll make it a little bigger by opening up my character panel, and then I'll make it quite a bit bigger, just like that, and then maybe put some space in between the letters just so it fills up the whole thing, just like that. Maybe too much, so yeah, just give it some even spacing. Yeah, that looks good, just like that. And then now we can just click off of it, and then now you can see you have text on a path. So there's a couple ways you can edit it. If I click on the direct select tool, and then zoom in, you'll see that there are some lines in here. So if you click and drag on these lines, you can sort of better place where the text goes. So the center one will just kind of place it in the circle a little bit more. Oh, you can even click, you can even bring it in or out of the circle. In this case, I'll want it out, but I just want the vector text to just be around the top right there. So hugging the top, so maybe I'll just bring it around just a little bit more, just like that, so it's centered. Other things you can do is you can also just change where the text starts, so kind of like that. And then you can see that's getting cropped off in that case. And then again, and then you can also do the same on the back. So if, say I want to get rid of the company, I'll just drag that back and then just go to Vector Coffee, just like that. And if I want it back, I'll just drag it all the way back here. And then, yeah, so that's how you can use type on a path. So this is a great way to just play around with text and paths together. And then sometimes when you have text on a path, you might have some strange gaps in the letters. So you just want to make sure you have the smooth curve so that it doesn't look too awkward. In this case, with all caps and a lot of letter spacing, you don't notice it too much. So the next thing we can do is we can turn a shape like this one into a text area to contain all our text. So this is pretty easy, really similar to before. All we have to do is have our text tool, and then now if we hover near the edges of the shape, you'll see that turns into a circle. So it goes, the cursor goes from a square to a circle, and then having that, when you see that, then you can just click in there and it'll immediately fill in with text, just like you see here. So you can see that it has a nice curve, especially on the left edge, and on the right edge you can also see somewhat of a curve. If you want to see more of a curve or more of this side, sort of the edge of the shape a little bit more, what you can do is you can go to your paragraph panel, and then you can just choose justify all lines, and then you can really see that it has a nice flow there. I'm not a huge fan of justify because sometimes it has some large gaps in the text, which makes it hard to read, but for something stylistic like this, I think it's all right. Just use it with restraint. So next up, we have our vertical type tool, which again is just underneath our type tool, and then we'll just use the vertical type tool. So this tool is great if you want to work with Chinese, Japanese, or Korean scripts, and what it does is that it can just help you type in a vertical line. So in this case, you can see that says lorem ipsum, but you know, you can type in any other letter. And if you ever want to do something stylistically like this, this is where you would do something like that. You can type vertically, just like that. This is pretty hard to read, so you probably don't actually ever want to do this quite often. But again, if you're working with East Asian scripts, this is definitely a tool that you'd like to use. In a similar tool, you can also do something like the vertical type tool and the path tool, and then you can just choose a path, and then you can see right here that it just fills in with the text right there. That is some other options you can do with text. So just another thing for any of you watching who use Arabic, if you like, you might find sometimes that when you paste in some Arabic or you're using Arabic, that all the letters will be unconnected. So in order to get to connect them all, you're gonna have to go into your preferences and show index options. So we'll just go to edit, preferences, and then type, and then we'll just click show index options. And then now we'll just click on this one, and then we'll have to open up our paragraph panel. And then right in our menu bar right there, we'll just use any of these ones, and then you can see that it changes just like that. All right, so now let's move on to effects. All right, so let's start using some simple effects. Generally, I often like to keep things simple, and I use flat colors usually, or sometimes some subtle gradients. I do use effects from time to time. Remember to keep your document color mode to in RGB to get the best look. So let's just set that up first. So in your file, just go to document color mode and just make sure it's RGB. Some of the effects just work a lot better in this color mode. So yeah, I will just go through some of the effects that I use most often. So the first one I like to use is the roughen filter to just give otherwise smooth lines a bit of a rough texture, which can give it sort of a grungier or a sketchier look. So I'll just select this illustration right here. And then what I'm going to do, and this is to apply any effect that you want, it would all be under this menu bar item, effects. So I'm going to go down to path, distort and transform, and then I'll just go to roughen. So this is one I use a lot. So again, you can just see right here that it's quite intense. So of course, we just want to take it down quite a bit. So even 1 is quite a bit, so we can just type in maybe 0.25. And then here we can change our detail. So we can see, we can have a lot more detail if you want. So you can see that there's a lot of little bumps right there. And you can even change the quality of the bumps. So if you want it a little bit smoother, you can just click on smooth. Maybe 40 is a little bit much, so we'll just leave it at that. And then, and then we'll hit OK, and I'll just select off of it so you can see. So yeah, you can see that now it has a little bit of a sketchier quality, which is quite nice. All right, so let's try some other ones that I use quite often. So the next one I use quite a bit just to give a sense of volume is I'll use inner glow. So I'll click on this one, and then I'll go to effect, and then this time I'll just go to stylize, and then now I'll go to inner glow. So inner glow is quite nice. You can kind of see that it already has a little subtle glow in there. So you can make the opacity of it brighter, and then you can also make the spread of the center blur a little bit more. You can close it in, or you can spread it out just by clicking up or down. You can also change whether you want it coming in from the edge. So this time it looks like it's the white is coming in, or you can do it from the going out from the center. So this is one I use quite a bit, and I use this to put to overlay on top of an existing image to just give it some volume. So I'll hit OK. I'm happy with that, and I'll hit OK. And again, if I want to change it a little bit, so yeah, you can change the fill color. Say you want a little bit darker, you can go like that. Or if you want to change the effect itself, you can just go into inner glow right here and click on that, and then you can maybe change the blur. So if you want a little bit rounder looking, then you can increase it and then hit OK. So then you can just change it like that. Another one that I use quite often, but more for design purposes, is drop shadow. So again, under stylize, you can just click drop shadow. And then here, similar as before, but this time it uses multiply, and then you can change the color of your shadow. But I usually leave these pretty much the same, and then most often I'll just change these to be a little bit smaller, and then have my blur be a little bit smaller. Usually I'm just using this to make give sort of a drop shadow to a flat shape like a sample poster. So I just often just want a very subtle drop shadow. So I don't like it to be too obvious. So a lot of times I'll just take it down to be quite small and to give it more of a paper-esque quality. All right, so that might be a little bit small, but yeah, just like that. And then hit OK. And then now we have a subtle drop shadow. So then that just gives it some depth as if it's coming off the page. Another thing that a lot of people use is the texture to create textures. So in this one, I can give it a little bit of texture, but I'm actually going to give it a gradient first. So we'll just give it a gradient like this one, or just a default gradient, just like that. And then I will apply a bit of texture to it. So under Effect, I will go down now to Photoshop Effects. So Photoshop Effects means that if you were to expand it, it'll turn it into image. But you don't have to worry about that too much. So we're just going to go down to Texture, and then we'll click Grain. And then now you can see that you have a few options. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit in the corner right here. And then you can see that there's an interesting texture right now. So you can filter through all of these different effects on here, but I'll just keep it on grain. So you can see that one selected in the darker gray. And then from here, I will just change it. So you can see in regular, it's quite soft. And then soft is even a bit softer than that. Sprinkles is quite nice. I like this one. But sometimes it's a little bit too much if you go all the way there. So you might want to take it down a little bit just to give it a little bit of texture here. And then you can reduce the contrast or increase it. So try to find a happy medium, just like that. Some other fun ones is stippled, just like this one. But this turns your image into it gets rid of all like the color. So if there was a color underneath, so you'd have to overlay it. But yeah, that looks good to me. And then, yeah, so you hit OK, and then there you have it. So then just give it a second, and then it'll apply to the image. So if you want to, you can actually apply multiple effects to the same object. So say, for instance, with this inner glow one, if I wanted to, I could also add a drop shadow to it. Just like that. I'll just hit OK. Nope. I'll just apply a drop shadow, just like that. And then you can see that there's a drop shadow now on the same object. And you can also apply a texture on it as well. So just like this, grain. And then I will just hit, I just use the sprinkles one, just a little bit like that, and then hit OK. Now, if you open up the appearance panel, you'll see that you have the inner glow, the drop shadow, and the grain all there. And then you can, and then if you want to, you can adjust them all if you like as well. So if you want it to be a little bit more, if you wanted it to be, just a little bit more spreading inwards, you can do that and hit OK. And then, yeah, you can just edit everything. If you want to edit the drop shadow, you can also edit that as well. So I would just be a little bit wary of putting too much effects on an object, because sometimes it takes a computer a bit to render each time. So something I like to do often is to just copy and paste the shape and put it right on top, which we'll do in the next one. So with this final slide, we're going to look at using effects and blending modes together. So if you've ever used Photoshop, this is a very similar approach. And by using multiple textures and multiple effects and just putting them on top of each other, then we can sometimes have a little bit more control and also play around a bit more with the image. So in this exercise, we just want to take these images and apply some effects on them and then overlay them on top of this image to create something that looks like this, as we saw in the front. So you can see that there's some inner shadows and then a little bit of grain on there. So we'll just try to use that and layer blending modes to create. All right, so first, let's just select all these objects and then let's just apply a effect onto it. So let's go into effect, and then all of it is pretty much an inner glow, just like that, because I want to give it a tiny bit of volume. And then I'm just gonna keep it like that and hit OK. And I'm actually going to make the color just a little bit darker so that when I overlay it on top, you can see it a little bit better. And then I'm also going to remove the stroke color right here. That should be all right, but you can kind of see with the neck, it gets kind of lost. So what we want to do there is just select that shape and we'll go to appearance, and then we'll just hit inner glow, and then we're going to reduce the amount of blur in there so you can just get a better sense of the neck. So just like that, and just like that. And then maybe we even want to make the inner glow of the cloak. In this one, maybe we want to make this one blur a little bit more, just like that. And then hit OK. And then we can even adjust the hair to maybe reduce the spread so we can just see the highlight a little bit more, just like that. I think that looks great. All right, so now I'm just going to group these all together. So object group, just like that. And then, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlay this right on top of my image right here. And this is, for me, I think it's a good way to approach putting effects on there because it just gives you a little bit more control over the color underneath, and then you can play around a little bit more. So right now, I'm just going to take this one and I'm just going to line it with the image. So I know that the hair goes the furthest out, so I'm just going to align it to the right, and then I'm just going to select this right here, and then just align the whole thing to the bottom. So now you can see that it fits perfectly. And then now let's play with some blending modes. So first, let's just play around with the face, and then we might need to adjust it just a little bit. So let's go into transparency, and then this is where you find your blending mode. So right here, normal is not what we want. You can choose something like multiply, and then you can see that the black takes on the gets multiplied on top of, it looks like a black wash on top of the color. Other ones that work nice are sometimes color burn. This might be a little bit strong, but you can reduce the opacity of the layer and then maybe soften it a little bit. This one's nice because it keeps the color quite nicely. Some other ones I like to use sometimes are overlay. This one increases the contrast overall, so you can see right there the white inside is quite dark, quite bright, I mean. So, but the colors are also really nice and clean here. And then another one that I might use sometime is hard light too, hard light or a soft light. So these are all options to use. And then again, just play around with the transparency to get the effect that you think is most appropriate. So in this case, I think I will choose color burn was actually quite nice. It had nice, deep, rich color, and overlay wasn't half bad either, but it may have washed out the colors just a little bit. Oh, overlay is quite nice. It's a little bit more subtle. If you want, you can also play around with it. Right now, it's it was on a lighter gray. So if you make it a little darker, you can kind of see how the colors change a little bit. So again, I'll just change it a little darker, and then you can see that. So I think that looks quite nice. So actually, I'll just leave it at that, at overlay at 18%, or maybe just a little bit more. So I'll just take it up to 25 right there. All right, so, or 30. And then, yeah, and then we can just do the same here. And then we can just use the eyedropper tool, and then that just takes the same effects there. And then I just want to choose the hair, and then we'll just do it one at a time. So again, we'll just choose, we'll just take our eyedropper tool right here, and then we'll just click it on the face right there. And then you can see a little bit, but we might actually want to adjust it a little bit just so that we can see the highlight a little bit better. So, and maybe in this one, we can reduce the amount of blur. So yeah, so now you can see that it pops out just a little bit more, but we don't want it too bright. So maybe just like that, and then we'll hit OK. So just a little bit, and then maybe we want this the cloak to also be the same, and then we'll just use the eyedropper tool there. And then you can really see right here, it's quite nice. You can see a little bit of it glowing. And then maybe even here, we'll just adjust the transparency a little bit more, just so we can pops out just a tiny bit. And then same here, we can also adjust it, fine tune it with our transparency, just to make it a little bit brighter. All right, so that looks really great. We have a lot of lovely depth to our image right now. We can also add a drop shadow, but I like to keep it simple. But maybe the last thing I will do is I will just make a texture right on top of it. So I'm just going to make a square right on top, just like that, from anchor to anchor. And then now I'm going to choose maybe 50% gray. And then I will just give it some texture using the grain right here. And then I will choose something soft, maybe not too much. Sprinkle seems okay. We can also see what stippled looks like. That looks all right too. Stippled might be nice. Sprinkles also good, but I'll try a little bit different. Use a little stippled right there. Maybe I'll increase the intensity just a little bit, and then I'll hit OK. And since it's all the same color, I didn't have to change contrast at all. And then now to set transparency, maybe I'll set this one to overlay. And then that looks way too bright, so we're just going to take that all the way down. And then all we want is just a little bit of texture to just give it some warmth and some richness. So you can kind of see that's a little bit more texture here now. And that's quite nice. So we'll just zoom in, and then you can kind of see that there's just a little bit of texture, and it just gives a little bit of warmth to the overall image, just like that. All right, well, I hope you found that helpful, and I'll see you in my next video. All right, thanks for watching.